Sunday Talks with the Marshmello Man.
We're back. Welcome back. It's been a while. Been on the road for a little bit. Been incommunicado. No internet. No television. Limited stuff. I don't know whether we're going to talk too much about that stuff, but so much has gone on, right? It's like every time I go away somewhere, it's like the dam breaks loose on some things. But I think most of the people that are checking in on this channel know what I'm talking about, which would be the release of some more tracks, right? Some more raw tracks that are out. So today we're going to go look at some of those. I got them queued up in GarageBand. I got the Marshmello fired up. I got the guitar sitting over here. And we're going to listen to some of these things and kind of talk about what we're hearing and some different theories of what's going on again inside of that sound. We're getting the curtain is slowly being moved aside and the wizard is being revealed. So let's start to begin. But first, as always, brought to you by Three Monkeys Solderless, home of the world's best cables, right? All different colors and all different types for your DC and for your audio. Best sounding cable. Check us out at threemonkeyssolderless.com, right? Okay, so let's begin. I don't even know where to start, except for with purple drink, because we're at a pink drink. So a bunch of tracks got released, and I wanted to thank some people for sending them my way or alerting me to the fact that they were being uploaded onto YouTube, right? So Scott, thank you so much. Tim, thank you so much. Oh my God, Hank, thank you so much. Eddie, thank you so much. I was getting a lot of email, even though I had limited internet connectivity. I just didn't have the ability to, upload files or download files of any size. I could answer some emails and I could do things like that, but I just didn't have any kind of bandwidth or any kind of things where I could, any data that I could do anything. So I was like, I wish I was around in the studio so we could listen to this stuff, but thanks for sending me that way. So I don't know who had these things. Maybe they've been around for a while. But they're starting to give some good clues as to what's sort of going on, with the guitar sound. So let's just maybe just jump right in, right, and get what we're hearing, and listen to what we got. I'm starting to get of the opinion that there may be like three sort of levels of distortion that were used on that album, right? There's sort of like the really high distortion, very splatty. And I want to sort of go into that more in detail as time goes on, as I'm not sure that I'm describing it accurately enough where people know exactly what I'm referring to in the distortion characteristics between these. So you have the eruption level, right, which is really almost going into cutoff. It's very hard clipping. It doesn't sound like we were talking about before, like a modern higher gain amplifier does, which is very smooth sounding. This has more splat to it, more raw, ripping ugliness in the sound. And the more close we get to the actual raw track, like the track that what you heard as close to the microphone as possible, the more we're hearing that. Now, definitely Don Landy had a huge amount to do with the final product. I mean, even these tracks that we've had for a while, a few years, like the Running with the Devil tracks or things like that, those were polished to an extent. They weren't quite like the album polish, but they definitely had polish to them. These new tracks that have come out are getting closer to being what it probably sounded like before Don did too much. There's probably a little bit of stuff on there, which is unavoidable because no one's going to just, record without a tiny bit of EQ, maybe a compressor or a limiter on the microphone, things like that. So that's always going to be there. But we're getting closer to hearing that. So we're starting to hear the splat. So we got the eruption level, I think, and then we have kind of something like You Really Got Me level, which is just a little bit below the eruption level. And then we have something that's more like Jamie's Crying, which is a little bit below that even. So the eruption level was used, I think, on a few sounds, right? I think it was used on I'm the One. I think that shows a lot of that sort of hard clipping and distortion. I think the You Really Got Me sort of sound level was used on a bunch of different tracks too, like, Ain't Talk About Love, I think that level. And, it may be just as simple as, that he was playing with the volume on the guitar for different sounds. I'm not eliminating that there was a boost involved, right? There's still, I think I've got an idea of what the amp was doing, right? So there was the splattiness of the amp for sure, which we could set up the amp to do. I'm not entirely discounting any theories yet, right? Until we have photographic evidence and blood samples and notarized depositions from Don and Ted, we're probably never going to know, right? So I would always leave as many possibilities open as to what the permutations of the gear would be. So you could have a boost in front of the amp. It could be slaving, which would sort of be the same thing, right? Like boosting another amp. So I'm not discounting either one of those. It could be, that there was a pedal on the floor that he was using and rolling back and forth or turning on and off. It could have been slaving, where he was adjusting the level on the load box to set the drive to the next amp. It could have been that it was just on gag all the time and he just played with his volume control to sort of get the level for what he was looking for. But, not every sound would work great for every song, right? It's sort of like some songs are a little bit more musical, a little less like cutthroat. So you may want to back the gain down a little bit. Maybe that was what he's thinking. So let's just start playing some stuff. So I think the first thing that people sent me was this room sound for Jamie's Crying. Now, we had heard some overhead mics for Eruption, and that really was the start of like figuring out what this amplifier really was doing. This inside this room mic sounds a little different than the Eruption, right? This one sounds a little less distorted, but let's listen to the Jamie's Crying room mics and see sort of what we got here. I've got it all queued up, so let's listen to it. Here we go. It's coming up. Little tune up. I mean, that's it's got a lot of low end, right? You can hear Mike's bass. Maybe there's a bass trap somewhere in there. Maybe where the room mic was picking up a lot of low end. But it almost sounds like something that the Munsters would have recorded. It's like, it does. I mean, tell me this doesn't sound, I mean, it's supposed to be like, like, what is that? Like a samba or something? Not a samba. That little dun, 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 dun kind of dance that, I forget the name of it right now. It escapes me. But this sounds like the Munsters. Right? Less splatty. Okay, so we sort of have that sort of sound in our head, right? And so I was building some of those sounds a little bit, like in the 10 minutes that I've been home. So this stuff ain't perfect, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that could do better. But I used some of that Sunset Sound room mics simulations with the Marshmello, and So I think you can hear a lot of the low sort of like boom. Seems like in the mix, maybe that was coming a lot from the room sounds, right? Because there was definitely this 60 hertz and below kind of sound going on. So that was pretty cool. Let's listen to another level of distortion. Okay, did I load that one up? Let's listen to On Fire. This is pretty cool too. Like right there, that chow chow, you can hear that the level of gain has gone up, in my opinion, right? I think it's gone up quite a bit. And you have kind of, it's a lot less put together, right? There's a lot more low mids in this sound. It doesn't quite have that air through the sound like it does in the final mix. I mean, you can hear that, right? But it has that... Like right there. Like his level there sounds like it's pretty hopped up. So let's bring that back a tiny bit and listen to that again. Right? Like it needs to be a little bit more over the top splatty, right? For that. So I think that's like level 2 kind of gain that we've got going on. I think I have, you know what? I didn't load that up. I can load this up really quick though for you because I want you to listen to the I'm the One. Here we go. Let's see. Overheads. I'm the One. Let's see. Where are the tracks? All right, you know what? Hold on for a second, and I'm going to find this for a second, and I'll be right back. Okay, back. Got the missing tracks that I thought I'd uploaded into this file back on there. So where were we? Okay, so we were talking about like the I'm the One splat, right? So I queued up, I got I'm the One queued up here. So let's listen to that and you'll sort of hopefully hear what I'm trying to get at here. Right there. Okay, you could sort of hear the splat going on there where it sounds very overloaded. Later on, we can hear it a little better. So I'm going to kind of cue around until I get where I'm trying to get to. Here we go. Hear that right there. right about here. You really hear it there. You can hear how absolutely out of control that is, right? The overloaded snarl splat of that particular sound, right? Versus, let's go back to Jamie's crying, right? So we'll go back to the overheads. It's not the best version, but you could definitely hear the difference in the distortion level on this thing right here. On the chord. Right? It's close, but it's not. The distortion I'm talking about is like you turned up your car radio too loud. Right? It's not like a Fender versus a diesel. It's like, the ICs are overloaded and they're not able to conduct anymore. So they create a hard clipping, raspy distortion. All right. So that's sort of like the two extremes, I think, on the sound. Right? And how is he getting that? There's a couple of ways you can get that level of kind of like splat. I think it requires two things. I think it requires the amplifier to be set up in such a way where it's really not functioning correctly and it's on the edge of being completely splatty, right? Because if you wanted the three sounds, you couldn't be too far over the edge, and there's only so far you can go with the Marshall circuit, right? Before you can't really get any more out of it. You could go pretty far. I mean, I've got that amplifier pretty much, it's hurting, but it's not quite getting to the most extreme level. And I think that has to be coming from one of two places. Like we talked about, it has to be coming from either the slaving setup of driving the second amp way too hard, or it's coming from something on the floor, like a clean boost of some sort that's really smashing that first stage. Both are sort of accomplishing the same sort of, desired outcome, but using different methods. So people might think, well, which is the right one? And I think, like everything else, it depends upon what you have around, what you have access to, and what you sort of believe, what sounds better to you. I mean, we all hear things differently. But the splat thing is definitely for sure. Now, I'm going to take another quick cut here, another quick jump cut, because we're going to go from, I'm going to set up something that I just put together to do like maximum splat. And it may sort of like, give sort of an idea of where we're going with this. So hang on a second and I'll be right back. All right, so I took the contraption I put together and I've hooked it up to the guitar. Now, this is an extreme example of what I'm talking about, but I wanted to kind of, so I don't know whether I'm keying people into the right thing, because, it's kind of trying to describe what chocolate tastes like. I don't really know how to do that. I try to say, it tastes like cocoa, or it tastes like coffee, but sweeter. It's tough to key in to what I'm doing at. So I built something that is just, it sounds gross, but it gives you an idea of the distortion quality that I'm talking about. You don't want this much of it, but for the purposes of example, this is sort of it. So I'm going to cancel my vocal mic too, so you can hear, you won't hear the along with it, so you just hear the splatty, ratty, overloaded sound. So listen to this. put the mic back on. Okay, now some people may just consider that to be fuzz, right? Because fuzz sort of works that way. Fuzz is something where you've made a signal that can no longer get bigger and just gets kind of squished down and doesn't have a lot of sustain. It just kind of is very peak to the cutoff level and then comes down quick. So it sounds more splat as opposed to long violin like sustain, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to key everybody in on, is that his amplifier sound on something like this, like we were just listening to me, that's what it sounds like. Oh, wrong track. Right there. You're going to hear it really in the descending chords right here. Like right there, that last chord, that sounded so much like a lot of fuzz going on. So, hey, I wouldn't even put it past that there was maybe even a fuzz pedal used now, in addition to the amplifier, the way it was set up. I think that there's that possibility. So we had those two color sound boxes on the floor. Were they empty? Were they just switchers? Were they multi-purpose? I don't know. But it's a possibility, right? It's definitely a possibility. I'm going to go ahead and mute this fuzzed up stuff here so we don't listen to the hiss. I'm going to unplug it too, I think, for a second here. You know what? Let's just go back into some of these tracks too. So that's what I'm getting at basically with all of this, is that there was a multitude of things going on here. This is not a one-dimensional problem to solve. I think there was probably something in front of the amplifier. I think the amplifier was set up in a bizarre way. And I think that slaving probably was done because that would have been great to use in clubs to keep the volume correct. So the answer is, which one is it? The answer might be yes. It's all of the above. I always heard that on the SATs. If you don't know which one it is, just do D. Was it D that was all of the above? I think it was. Anyway, so going back into the tracks, I mean, there are so many really cool things that sort of been released, and I hope they keep coming, right? Like, for instance, let's listen to this Fair Warning track of Dirty Movies that was released, and it's so bizarre. It's really cool. Let's listen to this. You can hear too how his amplifier, this is not the same distortion characteristic as used on the first album, right? So let's listen to this. Wow. No reverb. That's crazy. It's like a whole gaggle of birds. Listen to the chorus on the backtrack. It's a shame to pause that. That's just nuts. I mean, obviously all that's in the album, but you can't hear it as well as you can hear. How much Eventide is on that is just nuts. And it's swirling and it's flanging. And you can hear the amplifier. It's not crazy high gain, but it's not a stock Marshall. That's for sure. All right. So this is where maybe the Jose mod started to come into play in my mind. So to me, it sounds a lot like a Jose amplifier's level of gain. It's not quite to Soldano yet, but it's more than Marshall. And Jose had to do something. I mean, he was there. He was around. I think they wouldn't bring it to him for just replacing fuses. I'm sure that he had some input. I'm sure Eddie liked to take advantage of what was around him. I think he was looking for sounds. I think if he had a guy that understood how to build amplifiers, I think he would have taken advantage of that and tried different things. And cascaded gain stages around the time of Fair Warning weren't exactly like, NSA, top secret stuff is pretty much out there. It could have been a pedal too. I mean, who knows? You could also do that with a simple, any kind of simple power, sort of like clean boost would get you into that zone too. So I wouldn't sort of discount the pedal, but it's a different quality of distortion. It's not the fuzz anymore. It's more getting into the modern sort of high gain Marshall sound, getting closer to that, right? But that track is just crazy. I mean, this is definitely the track they used. You can hear all the little mistakes and nuance. I've never heard that slide part before. I wish there was a version without Roth or any vocals. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That stereo guitar sound. I mean, that's sort of getting into what you didn't really hear anything in my mind. Maybe we'll hear some tracks off of, 1984 or something like that where it's this nuts, but this is sort of almost Van Hagar era amount of modulation on the tone. It's pretty, but it's a little bit more analog-y than the Van Hagar stuff. Like, I'm sure that the harmonizer he used was not, the ultra harmonizer. I'm sure he's still using one of these, the 949. Anyway, a CMOS Logic, analog, beginning of digital, so to speak, harmonizer, not the real DSP sort of stuff that came later. They just have a different sound. The clocks in the older Eventides are not perfect. They just have this inability to stay perfectly in time. And you get a lot of weird, really cool kind of like variations out of it. I think we talked about the Eventide clocks back in the day and the CMOS sort of logic that they used, which was really cool. All right, let's keep going. This is going to go on forever. Let's hear. Oh, which was it? All right. So there was something about hearing the echo and how he was turning the echo on and off. Let me see where I can find. It's on fire. All right, let's put on fire. That's a great one right there. Is you're gonna hear where he goes through the whole, where he's like, what part is that? I don't know, it's somewhere in there where he's turning the echo on and off, and it's so slight. And it's, I think, the same echo that was used on Ain't Talking About Love. But let's listen to it. Here. Right? I think that's the same echo that was used on, right? I think it was. So listen to how faint that slap back is, though. It's not a very big slap, right? And it's not on this part, right? It's only that, and he turns it off on this chord and doesn't have it when he's kind of riding the muted E. Right? It's kind of cool. It kind of gives you a clue as to where the echo might have been placed. So let's listen to it again. Now you see how it has that level of distortion again, where it's in the splat zone, right? You can hear him turn on the phaser. There's Mike going, ooh. That's so funny. That's so funny. What was that little noise at the end here? Wow. Ooh. Very cool. Very cool. All right, so what else do we got here on the track list? So we did On Fire. You Really Got Me. The Room. We did The Room. Did we do Atomic Punk? Let's just listen to that and get a reaction. I haven't had a chance to really go through this, so I'm kind of like bugging out in real time as to what the hell's going on here. This is just nuts. So Atomic Punk. Fuzz level. Yep. That's out of control. I hate to pause that, but that has the same level of gain as Eruption does or I'm the One. It's the fuzz splat, 100%. Oh my God. Did you just hear that? This little, right about here. This part. Unreal amount of gain of fuzz. You can also hear how much Don Landy cleaned that sound up. I mean, that to me is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing that he turned that sound into what we hear on the album. I don't know how you do that. That's something else. Let's go on. Oh, you just hear that chord? Holy shit. I mean, how do you... Phaser. You can hear him. You can hear Mike check his bass tuning, or was that? That's what he hit. It was Eddie. What the hell? Is that just like reflex or something? Maybe from playing live, maybe after every song he just goes and he knows what he's going to be playing next and he's setting up for all those weird tunings that he had. Unreal. So the closer we get to more and more tracks, I think the closer we get to solving this thing. So the color sound is sort of what I'm thinking about now, that there may be a color sound along with everything else that we've been talking about. So what other fuzzes were around? Because this sounds like it could be even a fuzz pedal. It could be. I don't think it's a fuzz face. Although everybody, most people, when you listen to fuzz faces, right, you think of Jimi Hendrix and single coils. Is this a fuzz face with humbuckers? I'm more along the lines of maybe it was a color sound, because he had two of those weird looking things, boxes on the ground that were hollowed out, right? One was maybe even a Vox. I can't remember what they looked like again. There's Ed's board. Okay. Yeah, so there was really only one box. Excuse me. I thought there might have a second. Yeah, that looks like a color sound box to me. Absolutely. Which then it goes into, well, which color sound? Which one was it? Because there were a few that came in that hammer tone, and they had slightly different circuits. They were all fairly similar. They all used sort of like a bootstrapped set of germanium transistors in them. I think they're germanium. I don't think they were using silicone. I could be completely wrong. In fact, I'm completely wrong. I can't remember. They're probably silicone, right? Maybe they're germanium, maybe they're not. I don't know. But there was some differences in the actual transistors that were used over the years, and they did some slight modifications, I think, in terms of how they were biased. But I'm pretty sure they were both bootstrapped the same way like you'd find in a fuzz face, but just sort of a different take on that. So maybe there's some interesting things if people have some of the color sound knowledge out there in Teddy Land, that which is to share the knowledge with us here. It'd be much appreciated. So yeah, I think maybe we'll stop here. And I really want to keep listening to this stuff and going back. And we'll come back and, I'm back here for a while. So this is going to continue again. The madness will begin again. And there's so much food. I'm happy to be back. Also, those other tracks that were... All right, so there's some other stuff. If I'm sure you all have seen it. Some other stuff on YouTube, which are alternate takes, and there's a diver down, sort of like isolated or remix of the Full Bug, I think, is on there, which a few versions of the Full Bug. It's just nasty. And then, of course, him playing that 12-string SG on that one song, it's just, you finally hear it. I wish, I know that there's more complicated issues than what this idiot wants, but it would be so cool if they were to release like all of these Van Halen albums as instrumentals and just take Dave out of the mix. Sorry for the Dave fans, but just take his voice out and start to put in maybe some of these other things. Like on this Dirty Movies track, I mean, I never heard some of the stuff that was in the background. I mean, he was playing slide all the way through the thing, right? And there was so many layers of things that I think his music would stand up even better on its own, without the vocals on it. I'm sure there's more complicated issues about being able to do that and then release them. But I know somebody has all these tracks, so they wouldn't be putting these things out. If you have mercy on us, put some stuff out that's like a mix of just like instrumental stuff, especially like from Fair Warning. I think there would be very deep on a lot of those tracks. I'd love to hear like Dirty Movies, or not Dirty Movies, Sinner's Swing, or hear about it later. I'm sure there's stuff I've never heard on the album sitting in on the cutting room floor or buried deep in the mix. All of those things, or One Foot Out the Door. Too many things. All right, so let's end it here. So good to be back. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back with more projects. I got a whole bunch of stuff to share with you, so I'll see you later.